Are you ready for it? Doom, 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 doom. Yes, I am finally doing another top 50 free size-inclusive patterns video. This video has been so long in the making. It was requested pretty much as soon as I released my first top 50 free size-inclusive patterns video, and I have been diligently working on it since that video came out. And before I get into this one, I do just want to give a huge thank you to that first video. Without that video, my channel would not be where it is today. That video helped me reach monetization. It is continuing to perform well, even a year and a half later. That video has over 20,000 views, which boggles my mind, and it is just such a huge piece of my channel, because doing that video really kickstarted me into doing these pattern roundup videos for you, and I have found so much joy in doing these videos for you. So you're gonna want to strap in, because this is going to be a long video. This is another set of 50 free size-inclusive patterns. But before I get into the list of patterns, I do want to take a minute to talk about what makes a free pattern, what makes that different from a paid pattern, what you can expect to find in a free pattern versus a paid pattern, so you are very aware of what you're walking into when you do a free pattern. So what constitutes a free pattern, and why is a pattern offered for free? How does that compare to a paid pattern? Let's take a little dive in before I get into the list of patterns so that you can approach a free pattern being educated as to what you might be walking into. So there are a couple of reasons why a pattern could be free, and I've narrowed it down to my top 3 reasons as to why I've seen patterns be available for free. The first is that it could be a new designer who's trying to get their name out there. Free patterns generate a lot of interest because we like free stuff. Everybody does. And having your pattern available for free will garner a lot of interest. It might get a lot of people making your pattern. It might get a lot of people sharing your pattern, and that will get that design out there quickly. The second reason why a pattern might be free could be because a yarn company is trying to advertise a new yarn, and they've tasked a designer with creating a pattern using that yarn to try and encourage people to buy it. If you see a pattern using this yarn, you might want to buy that yarn so that you can make that pattern. It's a marketing technique. And the third reason why patterns are available for free sometimes is that a designer could have a blog where they share a free version of their pattern, but also sell an ad-free version that is a PDF copy of the pattern. So if you want to be able to knit the pattern for free, you just need to go over to their blog. But when you go to read the pattern, it's peppered throughout with advertisements. A lot of people find that distracting when they're reading a pattern, so they might be likely to purchase the pattern as a PDF copy in order to avoid those advertisements. That's actually the case of some of the patterns on this list, and that was the case of a lot of patterns on my first top 50 free size-inclusive patterns video. And a lot of people who watched that video were quite confused when they went to look at the pattern on Ravelry, and it said that it had a cost associated with it. Ravelry has gotten a little bit better, and they have a little note in the pattern right beneath where the fee is to say, also available as a free version, see notes. And then you go to the notes of the pattern, and then there's a link to the blog where the pattern is available for free. I do recognize that Ravelry is not accessible for everybody, so with all of my size-inclusive pattern videos, I have tried my best to find links that are available off of Ravelry, and I put that together in a Google document so that you can all access that. And in some cases, yes, it is available only on Ravelry, and it tends to be with free patterns that they're only available as a Ravelry download. So in some cases, they are only available free through Ravelry. So for those versions, I do apologize, but I've done my best to find versions that are not on Ravelry as well. So when knitting a free pattern versus a paid pattern, it sometimes comes with a few compromises. The most obvious being that rarely are free patterns tech edited or tested, because both of those involve more work, which takes longer to produce the pattern, which in turn means the designer has to put more money or more time into the development of the pattern. And yes, if they're selling the pattern, they're going to try and make money. If they're offering it for free, they might not be looking to make money, but it's still exposure for them. And they're trying to produce a pattern that will garner interest, and maybe they have other patterns that are paid patterns, and seeing that free pattern will get you interested in their work, and then that might bring you into the door to purchasing some of their patterns. So there is always that element of input from the designer that affects their bottom dollar. And when you get a free pattern, they might not have put the same amount of time and effort into that pattern because they're offering it for free. So that's not to say that these are bad patterns. They're definitely not all bad patterns. There are some on this list that are done by designers that I highly respect and that I know do very, very good work, especially when it comes to size inclusivity. But there is also the flip side where these patterns haven't been tested. For the most part, I don't know for sure, of course, but I'm making an educated guess that a lot of these patterns are not tested because they're developed usually quite quickly, especially when they're for a yarn company who has a deadline and a budget and they need things out for certain marketing reasons and whatnot. So especially if you're going in as a plus size person like myself, you might not get the same attention to fit that you would with a paid pattern. Of course, there are bad paid patterns too. I myself have been victim to a lot of bad patterns that I have paid for. It's sometimes the luck of the draw. You can make your chances better when you look to see if other people your size have made it, talk to other people you know who have made it, and get a good idea of whether or not the pattern will work for you. But when it comes to a free pattern, sometimes you feel like rolling the dice and taking the chance. So some of these patterns might not have the same level of attention to size inclusivity and proportionate sizing that a paid pattern might. But sometimes it's worth the risk to do a free pattern and just have fun with it. So now that I've given you an overview of paid versus free patterns, let's take a look at my list of my top 50 free size-inclusive patterns. I've divided my list into 5 categories, starting with summer tops, cardigans, vests, sweaters, and skirts. So I don't have the same amount of patterns for each category, but I'm very excited to show off all of these patterns. And I've divided them in these categories, and once they're in the category, I've then divided them into plain, texture, and color work. So I think I've got a little bit of something for everyone, and there's a really wide variety of what's available in this list, so I hope you find something that you love. Now let's get started with summer tops. The first pattern on my list is Queen's Gambit by Sissy Yao and published in Knitty magazine. I really love the checkerboard style of this tank, and this could interchangeably be worn as a vest depending on the season that you're in, but I really love the classic box shape to the colorwork design. It is stranded colorwork, but it does create this really nice classic pattern detail, and I really love this. The next pattern on my list is Hope Point by Deanna Haxton, also published in Knitty magazine. You're going to notice a bit of repetition with where I've found these patterns, but that's because these are places that I can rely on to find size-inclusive patterns. And let's be honest, not a lot of people make size-inclusive free patterns, so the barrel is not quite as full as it normally would be. So there will be some repetition, but I hope that you still enjoy the patterns that I find for you. This one in particular, I really love the look of. It is done with mosaic color work, and this one is actually a bottom-up design. I might be changing my tune with whether or not I like bottom-up. Sounds like sacrilege from me, I know, but I am actually having a really great time with a bottom-up pattern right now, so I feel like I was a little quick to judge, so maybe I will try some more bottom-up patterns, and this one really calls to me. I really love the mosaic color work. I think it's really fresh and really fun. The next pattern on my list is the Diaphane top, I hope I pronounced correctly, by Audrey Borrego, published on the Hobie website. Now, this is a brand new pattern. It just came out last week, I think, or the week before. Depends on when I release this video. And this is from a special collaboration between the sadly now discontinued Pom Pom magazine and the Hobie website. And I really love it because Pom Pom brought their size inclusivity to Hobie, because previously I've never found size inclusive patterns on the Hobie website. They've always been either very limited sizing or just under where they need to be size inclusive. And it's been kind of frustrating trying to find patterns on there because I do love their yarns and I do use their yarns. So I love that Pom Pom did this collaboration with them and they released a lot of really beautiful patterns, but this was my favorite one and I really want to make this top. It is knit using mohair, but I could definitely see this also working for a lace weight cotton or a lace weight tencel or something like that. You would get a totally different look compared to the mohair because the mohair fluff adds structure to this really beautiful boxy button-up shirt. So if you wanted to do it with a cotton or a tencel, it's going to give it a different drape when you use a plant-based fiber over a mohair because you're not going to have the same level of structure. It's definitely going to be more soft and flowy, but that's not a bad thing because you could make this into a really flowy button-up shirt and it would just give you a different look than you would get with the mohair, but it would still be a really great top. The next pattern on my list is the Summer Sweater by Kalle. This one is another pretty new pattern and I really love this style. It's something that you look at it on the mannequin, such as the photo that I have here, and it doesn't have a lot of life to it. But as soon as you see that on a body, you really see how those lace sleeves that start at the neckline really fit the body so nicely and they really come alive on a real person versus just a mannequin. And I think this would be a really great summer tee. The next pattern on my list is Green Machine by Amy Gunderson, published in Knitting Magazine. I was on a bit of a knitty search lately and they released a lot of really great summer tees this year. So I've been putting a lot of those in this list. But I really like this one because it's really hard to tell with the color yarn that they've done the sample in. But there's a beautiful lace section at the bottom of this top that creates this really gentle scalloped edge that I think really makes this tee look really pretty and gives it a lot of visual interest. The next pattern on my list is Rivete by Rachel Brockman. And Rachel Brockman has done a lot of free patterns, and I've included a lot of her patterns in some of my previous roundups, including my previous top 50. And there's at least one more on this list by her, but let's look at the Rivete first. I really love this V-neck tank top because it creates such a beautiful line with that cable detailing going straight down the middle of both the front and the back, although I've only shown the front on this picture. But I really love that visual detail of the cable kind of like growing with the top and growing outwards onto the two straps that come up. It just looks really beautiful, really delicate, just a beautiful detail to a tank top. Okay, I lied. I have multiple Rachel Brockman patterns on this list because here's another set of two. I wanted to group these together even though they're two different types of items because they're promoted as a set. And this is the Chicory Cardigan and Chicory Tank Top. I think these are so beautiful and that all over lace just gives me that really summery, beachy vibe. And I think that's what they were going with the photos of the sample because they look like they were taken at a beach with lots of driftwood around. I am really in love with these. I think they're something that are a really great item to have in your wardrobe, especially for summer nights, because you could wear the tank top during the daytime, and when you get a little chilly but you're not chilly enough for like a full-on cardigan, you pull on this really lacy cardigan and you still get lots of airflow with that, but you have this added layer of a cardigan. And I think together they look beautiful in those really similar colors, but you could also do it in the exact same color and have a very matching set. But it's really nice how the color of the tank top is picked up in the cardigan with those stripe details on the cuff of the cardigan. And with that set of patterns, we are moving on to cardigans. The next pattern on my list is Malo, which is a sister pattern to a pattern that I shared in the original Top 50 video, which was called Marsh. And at the time, I didn't know that there were these two patterns. I had just picked out that top to share, and I thought, Marsh, interesting name, then didn't think anything of it. Now seeing the companion pattern be called Malo, it makes sense that they are companion pieces because they're Marsh and Malo. I just think that's such a cute little idea, especially if you want to knit these both together. Now, Marsh and Malo don't really work as well as a set like the Chicory tank and cardigan did, because essentially you're just using the same back panel to create a different piece. It's not like they're meant to go together. They're just using the same back panel, which is absolutely fine. It's really great that you get two completely different patterns using that same back panel, which really excites me. I love that all over lace back panel, but the rest of the cardigan is knit and stockinette, so you really get a nice balance between doing lots of textured lace work on the back, and then you get to kind of relax with the front pieces and the sleeves. But this one is also really great as like a summertime cardigan because it allows airflow onto the back because of all of that beautiful lace work. The next pattern on my list is the Vertical Lace Panels Cardigan by Svetlana Avrak, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, I do apologize. This one really speaks to me because not only does it have these beautiful lace panels going down the front on either side of the button band, but it has this all over cutesy little lace pattern across the whole cardigan. Stylistically, all those little sets of 4 eyelets together remind me of a rosebud print on like a piece of cotton fabric or something. It's just that every little once in a while little detail that it just looks so cutesy, so romantic, and I think it makes a beautiful cardigan. The next pattern on my list is Brier by the Barocco team. This one looks beautiful. I love that this lacework is more meant to be very up and down streamlined, and in fact it's really difficult to see the lacework on the sample photo, but it is there, and when you do look closer at the photos you can see that it's meant to be a very geometric style of lace, and I think it gives it a really nice touch. It kind of feels more grown up, very meant for work or something a little more professional, and I really like that vibe of this cardigan. The next pattern on my list is Kudu, which I hope I pronounced correctly, by Marie-Amélie Designs, who featured quite heavily on my last Top 50 Free Size Inclusive Patterns video. And the cool thing about Marie is that she had an entire catalog of patterns that were all paid for patterns, but a few years ago she decided to just make them all free, which really helped out a lot of us because almost every single one of her patterns was size inclusive, and she designed some really beautiful, intricate patterns, and this cardigan is no exception. I really love the gorgeous lace yoke, and it's a circular yoke, so it really starts to build and radiate outwards, and I really love that look. It kind of reminds me of leaves, even though I don't know if that was the intention behind it, but it has this really beautiful fall vibe to it, especially in the color that the sample is made in. The next pattern on my list is the Macaron Cardigan by Espace Tricot, who are a Canadian yarn store. I really love Espace Tricot. They have all free patterns except for they used to have a lot of their circular yokes all available for free, but now they're all together in one booklet of 10 patterns for $10, which is a steal. And those patterns are gorgeous. I love them. And it's $10 Canadian, so if you are in the States or the UK, that's a bargain for you. But they do have a lot of other patterns that are still available for free. And I love their patterns. I really love this one, the Macaron Cardigan, because it is just a classic V-neck cardigan with these lovely balloon sleeves. I love that this is also a cropped cardigan, so this would look really nice with dresses or with high-waisted skirts. And it just looks very feminine, very romantic, especially because it has mohair to give it that little bit of angel fluff. But if you want to see a fluffy cardigan, my next one, the Darla Cardigan by Andy Satterland, published on the Knit Picks website, is the cardigan for you. This one uses boucle yarn, and I love that it is harkening back to those 1950s poodle skirts with that cute little poodle applique, as well as the contrast trim for the ribbing and for the sleeve cuffs. It just looks darling, and I think it would be a really fun cardigan to make, whether you want something that is going to be vintage inspired or you're just looking for a classic cardigan, because this is a really nice classic cardigan. It's your typical round neck, button front, and I think that this would be a lovely addition to any wardrobe. Speaking of classic cardigans, this next one, the 365 cardigan by Jess Copham, I hope I pronounced that correctly, is the one. This is something that I could see myself wearing day in and day out. I really love long cardigans, if they're not too long, because they're so cozy. They can work like a cardigan, like a coat, like a robe. I could just like throw it on over my pajamas to just like keep warm early in the mornings. I could wear that with so many different items in my wardrobe. I just love it, especially with those really nice big pockets. Oh, it's actually great to see this pattern because the Make and Do crew, which is where this pattern is published, are known for their crochet designs. So it's really nice to see that they're getting into more knitting patterns. And I think this is their first knitted garment that they've made. And they've started with a size-inclusive option. So it makes me feel really happy to know that they're probably going to keep doing size-inclusive options with their sizing. And that just makes my heart so happy. The next pattern on my list is for those adventurous knitters. This is the Diagonal Dreams by Jerry Riggs. This is a custom fit pattern using any gauge. This pattern is for anyone who wants to experiment with whatever yarn they have. In fact, one of the projects on Ravelry not only experimented with different colors, they also used a couple different textured yarns, including what looks like an eyelash yarn, which, oh my gosh, that was something that made me cringe when I would see it before, but it works in this pattern sample, and I love it. I think it looks great. It's a really fun detail added to the pattern just to give it some flair and some fun, and I love that this pattern encourages you to do that. So if you're feeling adventurous and you want to knit a pattern to any size using whatever gauge you feel like, this might be the pattern for you. Speaking of playing around with yarns and colors, the next pattern on my list is the Fluffy Poof by Beata Jezik of Hedgehog Fibers. I love Hedgehog Fibers patterns. I love Hedgehog Fibers yarns. And this is another one to add to the Poof series. So in my first top 50 free patterns video, I included both the Poof cardigan, and the Turtle Poof, which was the turtleneck version. This is a new one to add to the Poof collection, and this one really speaks to me because it is another one of those fading or marling styles, and this one uses a strand of fingering weight and a strand of mohair. So if you're like me and you have a bunch of mohair scraps hanging around from various projects, this would be a great way to incorporate them and play around with color to create a really fun cardigan. And of course, it's going to keep you cozy with all that mohair on. So I love this one. The next pattern on my list is Samara by Osa Bukta, which I hope I pronounced correctly. If not, I do apologize. And this was made for Barocco yarns. I have shared patterns by Osa before, and I really love her designs. This one's no exception. This one I love because it has those little pops of color that give an otherwise simple cardigan a visual delight. I really love that this one plays with both color and texture by only using those detailed colors on the moss stitch sections of the sleeves and the pockets. But if you only wanted this in one color, totally easy to just omit those extra colors. But if you like them just like I do, it's a really nice detail to the pattern. The next pattern on my list is Featherwork by Geraldine Mason for Knitty Magazine, and I hope I pronounced the name correctly. You know, if I'm sharing some colorwork cardigans, there's going to be a couple that are steeked. This is a steeked cardigan, but it's only one small section of colorwork, so if you're just new to colorwork, this might be a great way to get into it. It is a fairly regular colorwork design, so it doesn't look like you need to carry very long floats at any point. And who knows, this might be a really great option to try steeking for the first time. I still have not done steeking yet for the first time. I am still living in blissful ignorance, but I have seen friends of mine try steeking and it really doesn't look as scary. I think it's just getting over that initial hurdle of cutting into your knitting. But there's great resources out there if you want to do steeking for the first time, and I think this cardigan would be worth it. It's a really classic look. I think this would look particularly well for a man or a masculine presenting person in your life. It's so classic, it's so stylish, and I really love it. My next pattern is another Rachel Brockman pattern. It is Blake. This is a great pattern if you have an advent calendar, if you have a bunch of mini skeins lying around, or even if you just have some scrappy yarn you don't know what to do with. This is a really great one because it has this gorgeous striping sequence, which although they use repeating colors, you could very easily sub in a different color for every one of those stripes and still get a really fun cardigan. And it'd be so unique to you and your yarn choices. Plus, that is one snuggly type of cardigan. Just look at the oversized feel to it. Oh, I would just wrap myself up in that. If featherwork was a little too easy of a colorwork cardigan for you, then check out the Carlholm cardigan by Kristen Drysdale. This one is published by a Swedish yarn company called Jarbo, I hope I pronounced correctly. And this one looks intense, but beautiful. And it looks like something that is going to be a very meditative project, something that you can work away at. And I love the color choices that they have made for this. It really makes that tapestry pattern jump off of the cardigan. It's so beautiful. And again, like the featherwork cardigan, it looks like this is very even, meticulous color work. So it doesn't look like you're going to hold any long floats, which would give you a really great opportunity to practice your color work. Now, something like this, I know is probably more of an advanced pattern, but it just looks so beautiful and it really speaks to me because of that beautiful pattern. The next pattern on my list is a set of two patterns. It is the Dotty Cardigan and Light Dotty Cardigan, both by Stephanie Jessica Lau of All About On Me. I featured a lot of Stephanie's patterns on my first top 50 free size inclusive patterns video, and I was really excited to include the Dotty this time around. I'm a big fan of those long open cardigans. I feel like they're so cozy. They have a place in so many people's wardrobes. They really fit a lot of different styles. And I particularly like the Dotty and Light Dotty, which are done in bulky and worsted weight respectively, because that all over textured stitch looks incredibly cozy. And it's one of those patterns that I feel like once you get into it and there's only like a few repeats to learn, you can really bash it out and it feels very potato chippy. So it's so easy to get through the pattern relatively quickly because you're so eager to just keep going with those repeats. Now it may seem like this next pattern is incredibly similar to the Dotty and the Light Dotty, but there are a few differences. This is the Pass the Honey cardigan by Joy Friedman for Knit Picks. This one features, again, an all-over textured stitch, but this one is meant to look like a honeycomb, and I love that. It's a beautiful textured stitch detail that really brings this golden yellow yarn to life. And I'm pretty sure that she chose that color for the sample because it looks like honey. But this one is a little different from the Dotty. It does feature a different style to the cardigan. There's no big pockets. It's a much wider front rib section. And the sizing is also differently. So if the dotty and the light dotty don't quite reach the size that you need, the Past the Honey goes a little bit larger. So if you like the look of the little dotty and the dotty, but they don't quite match your size, the Past the Honey might, because it goes a little bit bigger. And now for my last cardigan on this list. It is Linger Again by Åsa Bukta, which I hope I pronounced correctly. I adore this cardigan. This is an all-over brioche cardigan. And I know brioche is another learning curve for knitters, but it is so satisfying once you learn it, and it really is an easy stitch to memorize. And the result is totally worth it. I especially love it in this gorgeous, like, woodsy mushroom brown. It just looks so classic, like it would fit in with anything you have in your wardrobe. And I definitely want to make this someday. Now, let's check out some vest patterns. Starting with See My Vest Chunky by Emily Boltwan. I hope I pronounced correctly. This is a classic with a capital C vest. This is one that I have on my list to make, and I almost started in the winter, but I got sidetracked and I worked on some other projects instead, but I'm definitely coming back to this pattern. I love the classic style of this cardigan. It's a simple pullover style with a crew neck, but because it's made with bulky yarn, I was going to use this to experiment with holding a couple different yarns together, really get into the stash busting, work together with marling some colors to create a really unique color scheme. But you could also just do it with one strand of a bulky yarn or two strands of a worsted or a DK that you have and just make it one solid color. It's just a really great blank canvas for a lot of different yarns, but it's definitely something I feel like you would get a lot of wear out in your wardrobe. If you like the See My Vest Chunky, but you want something that's coming up a little higher to keep you a little extra warm, the next pattern is the Welsley Vest by Catherine Poole Fournier for Yarnspirations. Again, a great classic vest, but this one's going to keep you nice and warm because it has that beautiful turtleneck that is made using twisted rib. Now, twisted rib's not for everyone. Super easy to sub in plain rib if you don't want to do twisted, but it does give that beautiful finishing touch. And in the bulky, super bulky yarn of this pattern, it really stands out because you've got these nice thick ribbed stitches. So another great classic vest option. The next pattern on my list is one for the brave, but it looks so fun. It is the Flagship Vest by Espace Tricot. This is an all-over colorwork vest that is knit completely in the round, and then it is steeked for the armholes and the neck. It is such a cool concept. I've never thought of doing a vest in that way, a colorwork vest, and honestly, it intrigues me. So this vest is inspired by Fair Isle patterns, and with that double layering of the colorwork, you're gonna get one cozy vest. And you can play around with lots of crazy colors. This would be a great one to use up your minis or your advent calendar yarns, or even if you just have a bunch of scraps lying around, this is a great one to use them up because you don't need quite as many as if you're knitting a sweater because you don't have any arms to make. It's just a vest. And my last vest pattern for you is the Rib Knit Tunic by Svetlana Avrakigan for Yarnspirations. This one is something I definitely want to make. It looks so cozy. I love the all-over rib detailing. I think that's going to be really, really cozy and comfortable. And I just love the styling of this vest. I think it's nice that it's not the same like cut-in sleeve that you normally see with vests. It's going over the shoulder. It's kind of giving this almost like wrapped around your shoulders feel to it. It's a really nice style that's different from what you usually see for a vest. And this looks so cozy for those late fall winter days when you're looking for that nice outer layer but you don't want to put on a coat yet. You just want something that's going to be a cozy layer on top. This would be really great for that. Now let's move into some sweaters, starting with Bright Side by Espace Tricot. Yes, there are a lot of Espace Tricot patterns on this list. And this one is aptly named because they've used some really gorgeous bright hot pink yarn. This is a great pattern for beginners because it's a top-down raglan. It's knit all in the round and it has this really nice boxy fit to it. It's knit using fingering weight yarn, so it might take you a little longer, but I really feel like you're going to get a great sweater at the end of it that will be a classic in your wardrobe. If you want the look of Brightside, but you want something a little bit quicker to knit, the warm-up sweater by As Fast Tricot would be my recommendation. It's knit the same as the Brightside, except you're using Aran weight yarn instead, so you have a different gauge. It's going to go a lot quicker than the fingering weight version, but you're still going to get a beautiful classic sweater. This one I feel is going to be cozier because it is knit using a thicker yarn. Brightside I feel like could be more versatile because it's knit using fingering weight, but this one still would have a great place in your wardrobe. I'm still not done with the top-down raglan sweaters. The next one is the Cowl Jumper by Longavec Anna. This one again, top-down raglan, but this one has a beautiful little feature of eyelet stitches along the raglan lines. I think that's a beautiful little detail to add, and it does make it really beginner-friendly because yarn overs are a little easier to do than picking up to increase stitches. Those ones can be a little tricky, especially if you're trying to get the orientation of the stitches right. A yarn over is just a yarn over. It only goes in one direction. I was so excited to add this next pattern to my list for this video. It is Flax DK by Tin Can Knits. If you have been anywhere in the knitting world online, I'm sure you've heard of the flax sweater. For me, it's one of the first sweaters that I ever encountered, and it's one that I knit for myself. I wore it in my top 50 free size inclusive pattern videos. I had done my own version of it. I've actually done a couple versions of this pattern because it is so versatile. You can follow the pattern exactly and have this great classic top-down raglan sweater featuring a garter tab going all the way down the sleeves. Or you can take this pattern and run with it and just create your own interpretation of the pattern. So I've used the flax, which is made for Aran weight. There is also a flax light, which uses fingering weight. There had to eventually be a Flax DK, so I'm so excited to get to share that in this video now that this pattern is also available. Tin Can Knits are known for doing super inclusive sizing, ranging from newborns all the way up to adult sizes, and they have done it again with Flax DK. Who's ready for something different from a top-down raglan? This next sweater is the Piper sweater by Caitlin Barthold of Originally Lovely, and this one is a bottom-up drop shoulder design. This one is one that, again, I think would be great for using up yarn scraps because it has those really great purl stripes. It's really fun to connect both color work and texture in a pattern, and this one does it in a way that makes it very accessible to a newer knitter because you're only doing stripes and purls. It creates a really great effect without being super complicated, and I feel like it would be really fun to combine a couple of different minis together to create a marled color to use for those stripes while still using your worsted or Aran weight for the rest of the color for the garment. Rachel Brockman strikes again with the J sweater. This one is a top-down circular colorwork yoke. And I love this one because it's just a little bit of color work when you first start doing the yoke, and then you move on to only doing one color. And if you feel like it, you could do a contrast rib on both the bottom of the body and on the sleeve cuffs. But it's a great way to introduce yourself to color work and really get a feel for it. It's also a really lovely sweater. I love the colors that she's chosen for this pattern sample, and they just look so classic. If colorwork is not new to you and you want something that's going to be a little more adventurous, check out the Great Wave Pullover by Elizabeth Towers. This pattern is inspired by the great piece of art, The Great Wave off Kanagawa, which is the classic artwork of the giant wave. But when I look at this pattern, I also think of Odysseus trying to get home from Troy back to Greece. It really makes me think of adventure and on the high seas, on the water, being on a ship, and it just looks really, really fun. It's just such a bold colorwork pattern, and it would be really fun to make. This next pattern might look a little familiar to you. It is PhD Candidate by Hannah Mann, and it is a copycat pattern of a sweater worn by Jennifer Lawrence's character in the movie Don't Look Up. You could definitely knit this one using the exact same colors to look just like the character in the movie. Or you could play around with color and make your own version. But I do think these are beautiful, repetitive, symmetrical colorwork designs. These motifs involve a little bit of 3-stranded colorwork, but it might be a great opportunity to try and learn that technique for the first time. Either way, you're going to get a great looking sweater. The next pattern on my list is the Nova sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl. Sophie is a designer with a very large catalog of patterns, and she's done a couple of free patterns, including this one, the Nova sweater. This pattern is all about that Norwegian, Scandinavian style colorwork that is all about cozy. This one, it's all done on the yoke to give you the maximum amount of coziness right up on your chest where you would want it in the wintertime. But it's also this really beautiful circular yoke pattern. And Sophie is really expansive with her sizing. She has a lot of sizes within her range. So if you're looking for a well-fitting sweater, this would be a great option. This next pattern is either going to draw your eye in or be difficult to look at. Tell me what you think. This is the Frequency pullover. And yes, there are 3 E's in Frequency, and this is done by Tommy Schaefer. This pattern is so cool. It reminds me of those magic eye pictures that you would do where you would try and like focus your vision in order to see a magic picture within that really like repetitive fuzzy design. I was so terrible at those as a kid and I never saw the pictures, but it was always fun to try. Maybe one day it'll work for me. But this sweater really evokes that piece of art to me, and it's so fun. Yes, it's a little hard to look at least for me. I find it's drawing me in, it's hypnotizing me, but at the same time, it's almost like, ooh, I can't look at that for too long. But how fun is that in a sweater? A lot of you love my Estrella sweater, which I have on in the opening credits of all of my podcast episodes. So if you are interested in a pattern that looks like that, but you want a free version, this pattern will be for you. This is Moon Phases sweater by Laura Engman. And I do want to give a little caveat for this pattern. It says in the description that it is available free now. It doesn't make any note as to whether it will always be free or if it might eventually go behind a paywall. But the pattern is available free as of time of recording, which is late July 2024. Hopefully this will stay free. It is a really fun pattern. It goes along with a kid's version of the pattern. That's actually where the designer got the idea for this pattern for. She had first designed a child's version and people were so interested in it and wanted their own adult version that she designed an adult version as well. So if you're interested in a moon and stars style sweater, this is a great one. The next pattern on my list beautifully combines both colorwork and texture. This is Estel, I hope I pronounced that correctly, by Marie-Amélie Designs. And this one is a 2-color brioche sweater. Knitting 2-color brioche is not as scary as it sounds, and it really opens up a lot of doors for playing around with color. You could choose to do 2 very strong contrasting colors and get a really fun, different looking sweater, or you could do 2 congruous colors, such as this example here. She's done a blue and a purple, and they really blend so nicely together that you almost feel like it's just one cohesive piece of fabric that, depending on how you're looking at it, the color shifts. And I really love that look. And especially with this brioche sweater, it really gives a lot of depth to that texture, and it really brings it all together, in my opinion. This next pattern on my list is Electron by Ariana Frasca. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This one, the Ravelry listing is a little misleading because it does tell you that it is a paid sweater, but when you get to the bottom, there is a link that takes you to the free pattern. So don't be discouraged if you go to look at this one on Ravelry. It is a free pattern. You just have to click the link at the bottom of the description. And of course, I'll have that link in my Google document so you can just access it directly. I love this one because it is a vintage feeling sweater. Those nice big puffy upper sleeves coming down to tapered lower sleeves. It really gives me that Victorian cycling sweater vibe, but it looks fun and modern too. It doesn't look like it's costumey. It's got this great style to it, this really beautiful lace panel going down the side of those sleeves that really bring it into the modern day. The next pattern on my list is a men's pattern. This is Toften by the Westrand sisters and published by Jarbo. This one just looks like a classic men's sweater. It doesn't have a lot of faff to it. It doesn't have a lot of detailing. It's pretty clean cut, but where it has detail, it matters. I really love that almost faux cable going down the raglan lines and then again down the body of the sweater. It's just that little bit of detail that brings this pattern up and makes it look special. And I think it would be a great option for the man or masculine presenting person in your life. The next pattern on my list is Side Cable Pullover by Lauren Savage. And this one looks so fun. I love that it is a plain stockinette body and then you have these really exciting cable knit ribbed sleeves. They look so different than anything else that I've seen, and I'm really intrigued by having all of that texture on the sleeves but leaving the body plain. It's totally unexpected, it's totally different, and it looks unique. If you're worried about having to do decreases in such an intricate sleeve, fear not. On the underside of the arm, it's just knit and stockinette, so you'll be able to do all of your decreases without having to worry about messing up that beautiful cable ribbed pattern. Lauren Savage makes another appearance on this list with this next pattern, the Cozy Diamond Sweater. Oh, I love the texture of this sweater. It's a beautiful all over textured style. It looks very similar to a couple of the cardigans that I featured, and I really feel like this pattern almost gives a quilting vibe. So you feel like you have this really nice, thick and cozy fabric for your sweater that'll keep you cozy through all of late fall, winter time. Speaking of texture, I've got a few really great cable patterns to share with you in this list. Starting with Pop Aaron by Claire Fitzgerald. This is a really classic all-over cable work sweater featuring a central motif, but it's brought into the modern day by using a fun, colorful yarn. So the yarn used for this is mainly a pale cream color with all these little flecks of neon colors, and I feel like that's a really fun way to do a cable knit sweater. I have some yarn that I've been meaning to use for a cable knit sweater that is a hot pink. And I love the idea of combining this classic sweater style with these fun modern colors. There's something about the combination of the classic and the modern brought together in that way that just makes it feel very fun and fresh. The next cable work pattern on my list is Savannah by Martin Story for Rowan. This is one where in order to get the pattern, you do need to create a free account. So in order to get this pattern, you do need to create an account on the Rowan website, but once you do, you should be able to access the pattern no problem. This one is another classic cable work sweater, but this one features this really nice deep V and oversized fit. And I really love that combo. It's something that's kind of coming out these days where you have boxy or oversized fits, but you still have details like a deep V that kind of add a little sexiness to it. And it's a great modern fit. I really like it. The next pattern on my list is actually one that I featured in one of my Knitflix reels over on Instagram. This is the Handsome Crisp Pullover by Karen Schaefer. And this one is meant to be a copycat of Chris Evans's sweater in Knives Out, which is one of my favorite movies. And that is probably hands down my favorite movie sweater that I have ever seen. It is so classic. It is so gorgeous. Not just because it's on Chris Evans. As a cable knit sweater, it is gorgeous. It features all kinds of these different shaped and sized cables that really add so much visual interest. Now, this one might be quite a challenge because it has so much cable work, but the end result is so worth it. Speaking of movie sweaters, this next cable work pattern is also inspired by a movie. This is When Harry Met Lucy by Paul Heisemeyer. I hope I pronounced correctly. If not, I do apologize. This one is also published by Knitting Magazine. This one is inspired by the classic sweaters worn in 80s movies When Harry Met Sally and While You Were Sleeping. There's something about 80s movies knitwear that was just peak cozy, peak comfy, mostly oversized, fun texture, lots of great silhouettes, and this one is no exception. I really love this pattern. The last sweater pattern on my list is Ada by Rachel Brockman again. I don't quite know if this is the last one on my list by her or not, but she makes really great patterns and a lot of them are free, so that's why there's so many in this video. But I love Ada because this one is designed for a man or masculine presenting person, and it looks so cozy. I love that shawl collar. That's one of my favorite collars on sweaters. It's just so much cozy right around your neck, keeps you nice and warm, and it also looks so nice. This one also features really great texture all over the sweater, and it looks like it's made just using knit and purl stitches, which makes it really accessible for a newer knitter. And now we come to my final section of the video, skirts. I only have 2 to share with you, so we're very close to the end of the video. I know it's been a long time. The first skirt that I want to share is Please Do Not Adjust Your Skirt by Lynn Sosnowski. I hope I pronounced correctly. If not, I do apologize. Made for Knitting Magazine. This one just looks so fun. If you are of a generation that grew up with the old tube TVs, that you were on cable, if you happened to hit a button, you would get this screen. And this was the screen of, Mom, fix the TV! Or in my household, Dad, fix the TV! Because you knew you did something wrong and you got this weird colorful screen. You had no idea what it meant. You had no idea how to fix it, but it did look really colorful and cool. And I love that Lynn has created that in a pattern. It's so fun. It's so cheeky and I just love it. And now the very last pattern on this list, the Cable Skirt by Gail Bunn for Yarnspirations. I think I shared a similar pattern in my first top 50 free size inclusive patterns video, and I was really excited to find another one this time around because I think it's such a great style. I really love the combo of this cute little mini pencil skirt done using cable work, because all those cables are going to keep you nice and cozy, especially if you knit this in wool or alpaca or another animal fiber, and you're going to be able to wear this in the wintertime. I love the juxtaposition of that like cute, tight, flirty mixed with cables, which are typically big, cozy, cuddly, warm. It's a really great juxtaposition, and I think it works really well in this pattern. And I love the color they've used for this sample knit. So pretty. And that wraps up my second top 50 free size inclusive patterns video. I really hope the wait was worth it. I know you all gave so much love to my first one. I hope you give a lot of love to this one as well. This was, like I said, a couple of years in the making. It took a while to bring a lot of these patterns together because it's a lot of work to put all these together. Speaking of, if you wanted to give me a little tip for all the work I do to create these size-inclusive pattern roundups, I do have a link in the description below to my wish list on Ravelry where you can buy me a pattern if you would like to. No pressure to do so, it's only if you want to. I really hope you enjoyed this list of patterns, and if you know someone else who might be interested in some of these patterns, I hope you share this video with them. I really do my best to find a really wide variety of patterns, and I really believe that there is something for everyone in these videos, and they are a lot of fun to do, but again, they're also a lot of work. So I would appreciate it if you could like this video, leave a comment, share it, subscribe to my channel, all the good things. It just really helps my channel, and I really appreciate it. If you're new here, thank you so much for watching, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. There were a lot of patterns in this video, so I'd really like to know. Please comment below. Let me know what some of your favorites were from this list. I really try my best to find something for everybody, and I really feel like I did a good job of combining a lot of patterns in this list. Thank you all so much for joining, and I hope you all take care and happy knitting!